Is scale always a problem with ficus? Because it seems like I've never had one that didn't get scale.
Usually it's an issue of not getting enough light. Because we had, until an overzealous employee pruned it back to the point that he killed it, we had a Ficus benjamina inside the greenhouse growing into the ground, probably for 20 years, and never got scale on it, not even once. So usually if they're inside, they're stressed, and the usual problem is not enough light. Palms, this is, the big problem with palms is that most of them are very bright light plants. That's the number 2 plant that's grown and killed in America. It's called an areca palm, A-R-E-C-A, or eureka palm as some people call them. But it is a very, very bright light palm. And people love palms because they are so graceful and can be so pretty indoors. And that palm is cheap because it grows very quickly. But it is difficult to grow unless you have a super bright light area inside. There are other palms that are much, much better, but most of them are lower light plants that grow more slowly and consequently can be very expensive. The Rufus palms in the Orient, these things are treasured and passed down from generation to generation, at least pieces of them, because they're slow growing. They take a long time to get big. They grow well without a whole lot of light, but they can be pretty pricey. So I think the Rufus palm is one of the very best plants you can get for a house plant, but it will cost a little bit of money because it grows so slowly. Other palms, and I'll show you some of these in the greenhouse in a minute, but good indoor palms, Kentia palm is one of the big graceful ones, but it's a very slow growing one. Kentia palm is a great house plant where you have moderate light. If you want a very upright palm, there's a plant called a bamboo palm, Chamiadora palm, and it grows very well without a whole lot of light. The little short palms are a different Chamiadora that they call Neanthobella palms. Those are very good palms for moderate light. But the one you really want to stay away from, unless you have really bright light, is the one you're going to be tempted to rescue from some of these places. It's an areca palm, and it is much harder to grow. There are a group of plants within this genus. This plant is commonly called Chinese evergreen. I have no idea why. It doesn't come from China. I guess it is evergreen. But again, an excellent, excellent plant for a house plant because it grows well with low to moderate light. And there are some incredibly pretty foliage varieties of Chinese evergreen. This is a plant that likes it warm. It does not like temperatures below about 60 degrees. So don't leave it out on your porch when it's really going to start getting chilly, or you will very definitely have problems with it. Now there are some varieties. This has one that has one of the smaller leaves. I'll show you some inside in a minute that have much larger leaves. These would be mildly toxic to your kitty cat if it wanted to chew on Chinese evergreens. Not deadly poisonous, but would upset the tummy a little bit. But Chinese evergreens, if you're going to give a gift to somebody that's not real good with plants, or if you are going to, if you know you're a plant neglector, this is a good plant to have because it does better with too little care than it does with too much care. But because it will grow without a whole lot of light, Chinese evergreens really are an extremely good house plant.
So you do want to let the soil dry out and
A knuckle deep. And if it's not drying out at least every 2 weeks, it's not
Do they
getting
have
enough
any
light.
disease problems that with the Chinese evergreen?
No. If I see a problem with this plant, it's usually because it's got too cold. It can get mealybug if it's stressed, but disease problems, no, not an issue with it. This poor little plant has been gifted with a horrible name that leads to the death of a large number of them. People call it a closet plant, and it will not grow in the closet. It will not grow real well in lower light conditions. It will exist for a while in lower light conditions. But this is a wonderful plant. Call it a peace lily if you want to give it a good common name. Spathiphyllum is its proper name. It likes moderate to moderately bright light. And if you give it enough light, it's going to produce white flowers for you. It's one of the few things that will really flower and do inside, for any great length of time. But don't keep it in the dark. Now, once again, there are many different spathiphyllums. Some of them have giant leaves. There's one called Sensation. Some of them have variegated leaves, one called Domino. Some of them, you know, make a big plant yay tall, others stay very, very compact. In general, the spathiphyllums are very good plants that are frequently mistreated because people don't grow them in enough light and consequently have problems with them. English ivies, people like English ivy, but it's a much better patio plant than a house plant, kind of like the ferns. If you want to have one of these indoors because you like the appearance of it, buy 2 of them. One of them outside, one of them inside. Switch them once a week. They'll stay pretty for a long time. But if you try to keep this, I mean, it's a great plant for a porch. You have a screen porch. My partner Roberta, on her back porch, she had one of these things for years and years till it just finally outgrew the area, but not inside over a long period of time. It kind of goes for some of these other fun plants. This is what they call one of the several forms of prayer plants. In a bright place, you can keep them inside for quite some time, but it's always good to have an extra 1 or 2 of them outside and just switch them out periodically. Your prayer plants, your maranthas, your calatheas are just such pretty plants that everybody needs to have 1 or 2, but at least let them spend some of their time out on the porch or patio and they will do a whole lot better. These 2 are closely related. This is a calathea, this is a marantha, but the care on them is about the same. I think they're just among the prettiest plants out there.
What was the variety on this one here?
This one is actually called Calathea ornata, but just ask for a fancy prayer plant. There's another one that has pink stripes in the leaves called Rosea lineata. I love these things, and they do actually have an odd flower on them periodically. Now everybody wants plants indoors that bloom. There is no plant that is going to bloom indoors long term for you, except maybe the spathiphyllum that's going to have these white flowers. And if you're real good at growing things and have real bright areas, you can grow African violets, you know, for some time inside. But everybody wants something that's a little bit bigger and a little bit showier and has a little bit more attractive flowers. It doesn't exist. If you want to get things like kalanchos, these things are tough and they'll stay pretty probably for 6 weeks indoors, but they're never going to bloom for you again. Get them, enjoy them, and either throw them out, give them away, or plant them in a protected place out in the yard. But if you're going to have flowers inside, it's going to be more of a short-term type of thing. Believe it or not, one of the easiest to grow flowering plants inside are Phalaenopsis orchids. You know, if you keep those things out from underneath the ceiling fan, they'll stay pretty and stay in bloom for months at a time. And everybody thinks orchids are so hard to grow. If you get good ones to start with, you know, they will last a long, long time. And I think they're certainly one of your better buys where you want flowering plants inside. Besides, it'll amaze the heck out of your friends if they think you can grow orchids. And you don't have to know that they're really easy to grow. Yes, sir.
What's the most common way people kill their orchids?
Too little light. And one of the most common ways they ruin the flowers is they put them under a ceiling fan. But you've done our orchid seminar before, and we'll do it again. And again, that's a long lecture. Yes?
I was told at some point that I have a huge Chinese evergreen, and I bought it here. And someone told me, I don't know when or where, but I listened, that you should, when it flowers, when it puts out flowers, you should cut them off. Is that true, and is that something?
Okay, let's explore that question, and let's see if we have any flowers here. I don't see any blooms on this one right now. It's a very good point. Plants are going to put their energy into doing 1 or 2 things: making flowers and reproducing, or growing. And they don't seem to be able to do both of them at the same time real well. We'll leave the implications of that elsewhere. But something that does not have an attractive flower, like a Chinese evergreen, you will get more growth out of it if you will break the flowers off. The plant doesn't really care one way or the other. But it's kind of like deadheading, you know, plants where the flowers have faded to make them put on more flowers. Some of these things that bloom, you cut the flowers off and they will grow a little bit better. This plant, if it starts to form a flower spike, you'll either want to move the plant outside or you'll want to cut the flower spike off. Its botanical name is Dracaena fragrans. This is Dracaena fragrans, variety Masanjiana. Fragrans refers to fragrance, and anything that has the name